everyone. I, Meghna Bakshi.
I, Yogesh Bist.
And I'm Mrinal Rawat.
Students of first year DME Media School, welcome you all to the sixth panel discussion of the world's first 10-day digital live international conference, ICANN. The ICANN 4 is being organized by DME Media School of Delhi Metropolitan Education in collaboration with the School of Communication and Creative Arts, Deakin University, Melbourne, Australia. We are privileged that ICANN 4 is being supported by Indian Council of Social Science Research, ICSSR. The theme for previous ICANN were ICANN 1, India and Changing Aspects of News, ICANN 2, Indian Cinema and Alternate Networks, ICANN 3 was the first online edition of the conference, and the theme was Issues of Community, Agenda and News, #Conference for Change. The theme for this year's conference is Information, Communication and Artificial Networks, and the hashtag is Communication Redefined. ICANN 4 is also supported by its 4 knowledge partners, K.R. Mangalam University, Gurugram, Haryana, Adamas University, Kolkata, Makhanlal Chaturvedi National University of Journalism and Mass Communication, Bhopal, and Vigyan Prasar, Government of India. Additionally, we have the Department of Communication and Journalism, Guwahati University, as our academic partner. Our international partner is the Institute for International Journalism, EW Scripps, School of Journalism, Ohio University, USA, and our media partner is the Policy Times. ICANN is the flagship conference of DME Media School, and today it has made an international name for itself. ICANN 4 is a clear example of it. We have participation of about 60 eminent academicians and researchers from 5 different continents and 11 countries, namely India, South Korea, Malaysia, Singapore, Bangladesh, USA, Mexico, France, Italy, Australia, and Ghana. More than 100 media educators and researchers have gathered to present their papers in the conference. We have a total of 36 live sessions, including 9 technical sessions, 3 workshops, 7 panel discussions, 3 special sessions, and 10 masterclasses. One of the most unique things about ICANN 4 is that all 9 technical sessions are being chaired and co-chaired by a galaxy of intellectual women representing different states of the country. I would also like to tell everyone that at DME Media School, we have our student body SPARK, that stands for Students with Positive Attitude and Resonating Communication. We also have our official newsletter named Journalism at DME, a fortnightly publication that covers all the major activities happening in and out of the campus. It is a student-centric newsletter carried out entirely by them under the supervision of the faculty members. DME TV is our official YouTube channel, where you can find the playlist related to all our events, lecture series, film festival, and all conferences. For more information, follow us on our social media handles. Links are being shared in the chat box. Let us begin today's panel discussion 6 on the theme Artificial Intelligence, Transforming Media Industry Landscape, with the address by Professor Dr. Ampreet Saxena, Dean DME Media School, Director DME Studios and Production, Director International Relations, DME and convener of ICANN 4. Over to you, sir.
Welcome everybody in this afternoon panel discussion of ICANN 4. This is the 9th day of this 10-day long conference, and we have been having number of panel discussions, master classes, workshops, special sessions and all. And during the course of all these sessions, since the theme of this conference this time we decided as information, communication, and artificial network. So the emphasis this time was on the technology, artificial intelligence, and whatever new developments are happening in the sphere of technology, and what kind of impact this technology is making on the content or in the functioning of media organization, in journalism also. So that is how, and there's another important thing which I wish to tell you. Since this conference is happening in the backdrop of this pandemic COVID-19, last year also this happened. To some extent, whether we call it credit or discredit, this whole conference has been shaped in the backdrop of these developments. Till 2 years back, we were holding obviously the conference in the physical space, and then obviously the canvas was not so big. But last year it compelled us to move to the digital space, because right at the moment when we were having the conference in March 2020, the lockdown happened. Just 5-6 days before that. So we had to put off the conference, and the 4-day conference had to be converted into 10-day conference, because simultaneous sessions were not possible, which earlier we were having in the physical space, wherein 2-3 technical sessions were happening one at the same time. So that is how we had to spread to 10 days, and that experiment succeeded so much. Then this year also we decided to do it with some modifications we were planning, in fact, because when we planned in January 2021, that time the corona was on the reducing side. So we planned it as a hybrid conference, wherein we decided to have some sessions in the physical space and some in the digital space. But again, and the conference was scheduled in May, but right at that very moment, the second wave struck. Again, we had to put off the conference, and then there was no option except to have it completely on the digital space. So that is how this all has happened, but we have not stopped. We are continuing. The only thing is, last year it was from June first week, and this time it is in the beginning of July. But then we are having the conference, and then benefiting by this online thing, this digital space, we have tried to incorporate so many countries and so many scholars from so many nations. Like scholars have joined in this conference, at least from 5 or 6 universities of United States only. So that is possible only in the online space. That would have never been possible in the physical space. So whatever benefits are there, we are trying to encash on that, so that more and more scholars from not only from across the globe, but within the country also, like as it was told earlier by one of the anchors, in the 9 technical sessions, we decided to have not only the women scholars, but that also from different parts of the country, from north to south, east to west. The chairpersons are coming from all over the country. So that is how we have planned, we have conceived, and we executed it successfully till this time. And I hope that this will continue to happen. And today's session is again important since it is on the artificial intelligence. We have already been having 4 or 5 sessions, some master classes, some workshops in the backdrop of artificial intelligence, and how artificial intelligence is impacting journalism, how it's impacting the overall media of the contemporary time. So I'm looking forward to having some fruitful discussion in this panel, and I believe everybody will be benefited by this all. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. In today's panel discussion, we have a special guest from our knowledge partners, K.R. Mangalam University, Professor P. Prakash, Vice Chancellor, K.R. Mangalam University. Professor Prakash is an alumnus of Osmania University, Hyderabad, and has done postdoctoral research from Humboldt University, Germany. Professor P. Prakash was also an additional secretary at UGC New Delhi, where in UGC, he contributed immensely for tertiary education for more than 3 decades, particularly in the context of maintenance of quality education. As a member secretary of UGC curriculum committees, he formulated guidelines for e-content, learning objective repositories, and e-learning concepts. He also played a pivotal role in networking of universities through NMEICT, National Knowledge Network. He has also chaired assessors committees of Distance Education Council, NAC assessment committees, the accreditation of educational institutes, and many scientific and economic seminars and conferences. Professor P. Prakash also has academic linkages with many universities in South Asian countries, Oxford, Cambridge, and many other European and American universities. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much for your humble words. I wish I had to continue with those credentials in my future too. The most important thing is that when I was in different avatars at various places, I always had a lot of passion for media. And the reason for that was I used to look after the educational multimedia research centers of those which were being instituted by UGC in various institutions across the country. And that made me to also have a nostalgic experience when we also launched EduSat in 2005, when the then president, late Dr. Abdul Kalam, made us to believe and also see that we visualize reaching the unreached. And that's the reason why in the morning, when Dr. Kiran Bala asked me what would be the title for this session, I said that is the best one which we can have for today's evening session right now, reaching the unreached. And has been very rightly said by Dr. Saxena, he did mention that we are not only bridging within the country across both the genders, but across the globe, irrespective of the topographic location wherever they are, but for reconfiguring and reorienting ourselves to their time needs of the day, so that we also not only hear them, but also see that how best we can express our own views to them so that we get connected. And in a world of digital era, connectivity is the greatest empowerment for all of us. It's not the social divide, but we get united. And I think that's the reason why we have chosen a beautiful topic today, artificial intelligence and media, for this particular session. Apart from the deliberations we had in all the 9 technical sessions we had over a period of time, starting on 1st July. I should thank the organizers, and particularly the title that we have for the I Can. I think we should change hereafter, not I Can, we can. That's a better way of putting it, so that we all get connected. We all also express our views. And I always believe that education is one media which bridges the gap between rich and the poor, between caste and creed, and also between the regions. And there cannot be a better dimension than a conference like this, which is being told as ICANN, International Conference on Artificial Networks, but then it is international conference in joining all of us together. So it should be we can. That's the ideal way of I expressing it. And I want to feel that maybe that we can give the expansion of the acronym that I have discussed today all of a sudden and coined it, can be expanded the way we need to do in our own collaborators and also those who are the ones which will be contributing for this. Well, going back to 2005, we launched that EduSat, and then that EduSat has made us to also institute 2 types of nodal points. One was ROT and SIT. I'm sure most of you must have heard about it. I don't want to repeat it, but in case if you're not aware of it, I may be excused for my repeating it and the ignorance by any chance if I thought that you are aware of it and repeating it. ROT stands for Receive Only Terminal and SIT for Satellite Interactive Terminal. And we launched these EduSat ROTs and SITs across India in various educational institutions. And those institutions were the one which were benefited from the usual broadcast, telecast, podcast into this kind of a channel by which we educated them, particularly those who are in far-flung places. The greatest difficulty we had was the bandwidth, what Dr. Saxena just mentioned, the space congestion and the social distancing part, which was practiced those days itself, not the corona, which has really invaded us and made us to practice that. In fact, I was telling to Dr. Kiran Bala the other day, if somebody says SMS, it is not short messaging, but if you ask me, SMS stands for social distancing, wearing mask, and sanitization. This is what we are now practicing it because of corona that made us to be at various places wherever we are, but still connected with each other in using our own technologies in reaching the unreached. And that particular SOT and RIT is the one where we used to deliver our lectures. The only difference was in SIT, the teacher had a forum to interact with the students while delivering the lecture. That was known as Satellite Interactive Terminal. Whereas ROT was the one where only people used to disseminate knowledge through lectures, but not had an interactive session. Why I'm saying is the digital platforms like this, the International Conference of Artificial Networks, or even social media and artificial intelligence, and the machine learning, which is the buzzword now in the cyber era, need to blend themselves to see that we reach the masses. Not only in the educational institutions where we disseminate our lectures of the curricula that is being allocated to a particular discipline, but we should reach the masses in educating them. And I think that the greatest contribution that all of us have done, if not me, but many of you in their own respective disciplines, is the COVID warriors, which made them to sensitize people to keep that particular disease at bay. Well, I don't want to go in the details of the various media that has been used. It's a Twitter, or it's a WhatsApp message, or it is a Flickr, whatever form we have made use of it, but they played a very important role to educationists and also the social media mediators, including all those people who were there as health workers. My laurels to them, and also all those people who played an important role, including the one who are here today and all those previous 9 days who must have played an important role in various capacities, in various forms, in reaching and seeing that the pandemic which was there did not made us to become victims of endemic zones. Although there were many cases where people have become victims, but I think the social media using various technologies had played a very, very pivotal role in making us to survive that particular crisis through which we all went through, and have all laurels to all of them, including those who are still fighting, but then trying to see how best we can keep the disease at bay. The most important thing I think I should confess in front of you all is that journalism and social media, wherever they are, in whichever language it has printed or had used the digital media, played a very, very, very important role in this, and not only educating people, but also seeing that we could reach the unreached. That's the reason why I use that particular caption today for this particular session. And I'm sure everybody would benefit by your contributions, by your deliberations. And I look forward hereafter to be a speaker in contribution more than being only a guest speaker to say the initial few words for you to get the impetus in carrying out the baton for which you all are involved with and seeing it to carry forward. Good luck to all of you. Good luck to all those who have played an important role in this. And also my thanks and gratitude to all the panelist members, the judges, and the contributors and the collaborators who made this platform to have the 4th international conference continuously without a break, despite the fact that Corona invaded us, but we never got evaded from the scenario. That's very important. And then I look forward, if you think that instead of saying I can, we can, will be ideal for all of us. Good luck to everyone, and thank you a lot to Dr. Mrs. Kiran Bala and all colleagues and students who are involved in this, in joining us together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. The coming of intelligent machines that can learn and perform tasks like human has not only influenced our everyday lives, but has significantly transformed the media and communication landscape. Hence, we come to today's panel discussion on artificial intelligence transforming media industry landscape. Today's panel discussion will be moderated by Professor Kiran Bala. Professor Kiran Bala is the Dean at School of Journalism and Mass Communication at K.R. Mangalam University, Gurugram. Ma'am is a professional with diverse knowledge, a doctorate in mass communication, gold medalist in both PG in mass communication and PG diploma in translation, postgraduate in English, PG diploma in marketing management, net qualified. She has many feathers in her cap. She is a qualified media personality. She is a keen researcher and a dedicated teacher with more than 19 years of teaching experience at both college and university level. Along with academics, She has contributed 5 years in All India Radio and almost 2 years in Doordarshan as a casual compere. She has also worked as sub-editor in National Hindi Daily, Dainik Bhaskar. Ma'am has been awarded Exceptional Woman of Excellence by Women Economic Forum in April 2019. Professor Kiran Bala has contributed in MOOC modules on SWAYAM and has published more than 15 research papers in various national and international journals and presented more than 20 papers in national and international conferences. Ma'am has delivered many invited lectures in international and national conferences of reputes. She has also been guiding many research scholars at the doctoral level. Welcome, ma'am.
We also have Maithili Ganju as one of our panelists. Dr. Maithili Ganju is the Dean of Faculty of Mass Studies and Humanities at Manav Rachna International Institute of Research and Studies, Faridabad. She has over 2 decades of work experience with leading media organizations like JWT, Ogilvy, Group M Media, and Dainik Jagran Group. She has designed several integrated marketing campaigns for leading brands and for development programs in India and abroad, and won prestigious EFFIES for strategic planning and rural advertising. She possesses excellent research skill, both academic and applied, for creating several human-centered design projects. Ma'am has also taught at the Manipal Academy of Higher Education at Karnataka and has written a textbook for school children, columns for magazine, and research paper. Dr. Ganju is passionate about films and believes in the power of storytelling as a catalyst of social change. We welcome you, ma'am.
We are also honored to have Dr. Navneet Anand as a panelist for the discussion. A communication professional for over 20 years, Dr. Navneet Anand became the founder of a consultancy firm, Grey Matters Communication and Consulting Private Limited, in 2010. Dr. Navneet has also been a consultant with World Bank on a project on institutional strengthening of Road Development Corporation of Andhra Pradesh government. He has also worked extensively in media, including the Indian Express, the Times of India, the Pioneer, and PC World. With a PhD in Sociology of Media from Jawaharlal Nehru University, he has authored 2 books and made over 50 contributions, chapter, academic paper for national and international journals on communication, book reviews, and seminar presentations. Dr. Navneet has also started a forum for Indian journalists on education, environment, health, and agriculture, a pan-India network of journalists. Welcome, sir.
Lastly, we also have Dr. Kulbeen Trehan amongst us as a panelist. Dr. Kulbeen Trehan has been working as a senior assistant professor at University School of Mass Communication, Guru Gobind Singh Indraprasth University, New Delhi. Dr. Kulbeen was confirmed the Iconic Women Award under the Exceptional Leaders of Excellence category by Women Economic Forum in April 2019. Her research papers, book chapters, and book reviews have been published in internationally reputed Scopus Index journals in media studies and marketing communication with high impact factor, published by Routledge, Palgrave Macmillan, Sage Publication, among others. She has presented papers on various issues in media literacy, advertising, advocacy, and sports communication, both nationally and internationally, with around 18 currently working on the project titled Online Advocacy Through Social Media and Climate Change. Welcome to ICANN4, ma'am. I thank all our panelists for accepting our invitation. We are pleased to have you here with us. Now, I request Professor Dr. Kiran Bala to please carry the session forward.
Thank you, Mrinal. Thank you, Meghna, for such wonderful words, such wonderful introductions for all the panelists. I would like to thank VC sir for joining us on such a short notice. Despite his busy schedule, he agreed to join us. And I welcome all the panelists, those who have joined us from different disciplines of mass communication in this panel discussion. And I think VC sir has already set the agenda for this evening for our panel discussion through his crisp and clear thoughts about the conference, its title, and the topic we are going to discuss today. Human communication. It has traveled a long and complicated journey from cave paintings to writing on leaf to laser printers, and now Facebooking, Snapchatting, Twittering, everything we are doing. And with digitization of many facets, our lives, we are using imitation of human beings' intelligence, which we are going to talk about. Artificial intelligence is evolving in all sectors, from engineering to health to communication. Name any field and it is being used everywhere. And in last 8 days in conference in various sessions, we have already discussed a few things about artificial intelligence in media also. But media industry is specifically facing transformation due to artificial intelligence. News channels are using algorithms and machine learning to check facts or biasness in news stories. Social media that we are using, it is also based upon deep text, deep learning, face recognition that we keep on using it. And social media recommends us friends, conversations, our search-based products, services. LinkedIn recommends jobs on the basis of our searches or the followers. Movie channels are using in subtitles. Films are using in visual presentations. So everywhere, the list is endless that we can talk about. But not to miss the things that we are using in our daily lives, in our personal lives. Like your phone's voice assistant is using artificial intelligence technologies like natural language processing and natural language generation to answer your questions. Gmail is using artificial intelligence to predict AI to recommend products to complete the sentences for you. And platforms like shopping platforms like Amazon, they also rely on artificial intelligence to recommend the products for you, which are based upon your previous searches or which you have bought in past. But one thing that I can understand is it can be artificial intelligence is really very, very creative. It can be used in art, in music, in games, in writing, in conversation. And personally, I enjoy when I talk to Alexa. So I enjoy talking to Alexa because it answers your questions very, very smartly. So these are a few examples how AI is impacting the way we are consuming the information, the way we entertain ourselves, and the way we use it in our professional lives. So you are using AI every day. At times, you don't know it that you're using it. So going by the discussion that we are going to start, first of all, I want to quote Union Education Minister, Mr. Ramesh Pokhriyal Nishank. He said, all institutions affiliated with AICT have been asked to offer artificial intelligence as an elective in BTech courses and also start BTech in AI and data science. So when our politicians are also talking about this technology so much, so my first question is to Dr. Kulveendra Trehan, that when everybody is using, every discipline is using artificial intelligence, how artificial intelligence is evolving in media education?
Right. First of all, am I audible, everyone? Yeah, this is the statutory question we ask before we begin any discussion these days, right? First of all, my congratulations to DNE, Professor Saxena especially, and his entire team, along with knowledge partners like Mahatma University, for such a wonderful academic integrated activity, which is so inclusive and which has brought clear many activities from academic papers, workshops, master classes, and whatnot. Many congratulations for this show. And now moving on to this particular panel in which we are discussing the role of artificial intelligence, especially in mass communication, education, or media education to access the. Like you pointed out, Professor Bala, absolutely. Artificial intelligence or algorithm-powered machines with intelligence are not just a technological change. No, it has the transformative capability because of the over-encompassing change it has been able to bring to both personal and public lives or social lives of the people per se. Like for instance, you were talking about Alexa. It reminded me of Erica. Remember the Japanese robo news anchor, which was to be launched a few years back, in which the human-machine interaction as a news anchor will, will facilitate. So, with all of us, almost everybody on digital space, with all of us consuming digital media as social media users or producers, we do understand that how Facebook, Instagram, other you talked about LinkedIn, they have been using artificial intelligence or human machine communication to create monitoring programs, to create assistive technologies in order to help the academia and industry also come together in many ways. Now, coming to how does it affect media education as a space, we have to understand that these machine-powered technologies, which are algorithm-based and which are intelligent, they are affecting not just teaching and learning spaces, but they are also affecting significantly the training and research development in media and communication classrooms, I might say. So today, when I look at the media and communication classroom, one of the opportunities which artificial intelligence provides me is the role of an assistive technology. Today, I can have a teaching bot, right? I can have a teaching robo with me who can perhaps take over my instructional role as a media educator. I don't have to tell what is advertising, what is news. That can be taken over by the machine, and the good bot, which you will create as a teaching bot, as an assistive partner in the process of teaching learning. And I, as a instructor, as a mentor, as a teacher, can then play a very critical role in making them understand and analyze the effects of various aspects of news, non-news, entertainment, advertising, and various other subjects. So one of the major, roles which artificial intelligence is playing in the communication classrooms is the role of an assistive support, right? So as a teacher, I have more space to explore beyond just an instructional directive role. I become the mentor in the real sense now with the help of AI, teaching bots as well. That comes to my mind. Like for instance, in a communication theory class, with the help of artificial intelligence, we can fill that gap of lack of our own theory. Most of us in the classrooms, we often say, but where is the Indian communication theory? So with the help of artificial intelligence-driven algorithms and programs, we can reinvent, we can revisit the existing users paradigm, existing patterns of media dependency theories, and then perhaps, design a theory which is technologically relevant, industry germane, and perhaps which can conquer with the status of holistic learning with sustainable development goal 4, that is quality education standards. So that can be the starting point, moving away from the instructional role of the traditional media educator to more hybrid role of co-instructors, co-learners, teaching bots, and using them as assistant partners.
Yes, because we are associated with the industry also, because teaching, we can't see in isolation. Industry is also being affected. So that's why we are discussing these things on this platform. Artificial intelligence has the potential to transform the way we approach marketing communications. So Dr. Navneet Anand, how do you see artificial intelligence in PR industry? What is exactly for public relations industry? It's an intervention, an opportunity, or a disruption?
Hello, good afternoon, and thank you very much for this opportunity, Professor Prakash and all the esteemed guests and my dear friends and students. I'll pick from the last word that Professor Kiran Bala said, disruption. And I will play a role of a slight disruptor here. Rather than exceeding and getting gung-ho about artificial intelligence, I would sound a little traditional in highlighting the fact that no, we are still going more by the wisdom of Professor Prakash than the tantrums of Alexa, and how this is going to be getting integrated or not at all. Now, maybe 2 points quickly I want to make, and I'm assuming that there are a large number of students who are going to get into the PR industry, and they should have a holistic understanding of the way PR industry has embraced itself. A little bit of context and a background. I am lucky and I belong to a generation that has seen the transition, many transitions, So from Indian Express, when I used to work, it was a black and white paper. When I moved to Times, it was all colored. The internet came when we were practicing journalism. I have worked, my first job in Indian Express used to be on a DOS-based computer, which would have blank screen and a popping, white cursor doing the typing. Then the GUI, etc., happened, and so on and so forth. Now, if you look at the PR industry in India is relatively new. I would say it was mid or late 80s that it started to grow, and it has gone multiple transformations and adaptation. I was talking about the transitions that we have seen. In the life of Grey Matters itself, for instance, we started in 2010 after Times, after Express, Times, Pioneer, and Reliance. We started Grey Matters Communications in 2010. Having come from a very research background, we thought policy advocacy, traditional mode of PR with emphasis on education and policy analysis, I think was something that was going to be the core of what we do. And we started like that. Midway, 5 years down the line in 2015, we realized that social media was coming in a big way, and we embraced it. Coming to the specific point that Professor Bala is making or asking me, I would say that if you look at the evolution of PR industry, it has largely adapted itself to the changes happening around. We are driven by technology today. There was no social media 5 years ago. Today, it is predominantly. I do not remember when did I last called a journalist to seek my release getting picked up. But yes, on a day-to-day basis, social media is something that we are going to embrace. To me, AI has a very, very limited role as of today in PR, because the kind of intelligence that you require in the kind of PR that we do or we propagate, or generally what is happening, it requires a lot of human intelligence. But yes, there are some areas like media tracking, for instance. You need to cull out millions of pages to see where is your client appearing. I think, yes, if artificial intelligence can play a role, if you have to do a sentiment analysis as to where is my client appearing, and there are various tools which are powered by artificial intelligence that allow you to get to know what is the sentiment about a particular product or a personality or an organization. When it comes to, you also tend to get tempted about the role that technology can play in helping you to define and refine accurate information from a million of information that is available. So as I said, just to summarize what I said in the first point, that PR has evolved. It has undergone multiple iteration in over 3 decades of its existence as a profession. As of today, 2021, while the world is going gaga over artificial intelligence, I am of the view that it will still be a little while before PR gets swayed by artificial intelligence. There are some specific areas in which artificial intelligence has a role to play, because especially the kind of public relations that are being done today has a huge intervention of human intelligence that artificial intelligence will take some time to master and replicate. For now, Kiran, I think this is the point that I wish to make.
Thank you, Dr. Anand. When we talk about marketing communications, we can't miss advertising. Throughout her life, Dr. Mathili Ganju, she has been an advertising professional. So I want to ask her, like, what's her take on role of artificial intelligence in advertising? How it has changed the industry?
Thank you so much, Dr. Kiran Bala. I want to start by thanking you, as well as DME and your Vice Chancellor, sir, here, for giving me this opportunity to be a part of this interesting panel discussion, which is already sort of, started becoming really interesting with Kulveen and with Navneet, sort of putting things in a certain context. I would also like to start by just setting a little bit of sort of ground for the question which you asked me. And the first point that I really want to make here is that advertising industry, we know, is a very robust and very, it's growing industry. Even in pandemic, when things were low, we did talk of, gain of about 600 billion, rupees. And so it's an industry that we really look up to in terms of growth and going forward. However, what is also interesting to see is that it is only the 45% of digital space that, of the space that we have is digital. And when we are talking about AI, we are essentially talking about this really interesting digital world where some of us, 45% of us, reside and are going to be looking at the artificial intelligence in one way or the other. So the point I'm making is that those 55% is not yet there, but that is a market that, we cannot say, will not be tapped. It is already being tapped because globally AI is there and AI is a part of everybody's life. So is it in our case, we the 45% who belong to the digital world, and we see it already all around. So it is there, and advertising is very much going to be, taking up AI in a very big way. So this is the first point that I want to set in a context. The second important point, coming from advertising to digital to the AI situation, is the very fact that at the center of any advertising really is the consumer, is the person for whom we are trying to do entire thing of advertising, talking, communicating, interacting, etc. Now, this consumer today has actually become a presumer. This is somebody who is not only consuming the digital media, but this consumer is also creating this digital media. And as they are creating, as they are interacting, they also are doing something called the data. So the big data, on which the AI hogs is being created, like, multiplied, and we have some 44 gigabytes or something like that, that big data already there. And therefore, we know that the AI has to step in. The AI has to show us what it can do. Therefore, the consumer and my presumer now, and the data set, which almost tends to become the consumer on the digital world. The interesting fact about this digital world is that not only is it changing our social lives, our value systems, but it is also providing to the artificial intelligence that opportunity to really get into understanding the behavior, to look at the patterns of consumption, to and providing that kind of information on which it is going to bite and thrive. So the third point that I want to lay out here is the fact that AI is actually the advertiser's darling. It is something that the advertisers, the marketers, the brands really want to enjoy. Because what it has done is, it has, of course, not only given this data, and therefore the planners, the strategists now have a partner like Kulveen was talking about the education bots that she looks forward to. So the marketers also look at these bots, which are going to be probably even wanting to do the job, if not replacing, say, your celebrities or your other marketing strategies with which they are going to be coming in. So marketers also have been, I mean, we have seen research which shows that the marketers who have invested in AI have actually been able to gain up to about 50 to 60% more in terms of money from those who are actually the laggards in the AI adoption. So therefore, all the fingers point towards the fact that AI is here and is going to grow, and we are going to be living in this world and absolutely sort of be a partner to it as the time comes. Having said this, what I really liked was the sentiment which was shared by Navneet. And Navneet, I completely understand your sentiments because, even I belong to that school of thought which saw the transition in the industry. And at this point of time, as we see the change in the digital world, we sometimes sort of get into this whole thing of human versus the artificial intelligence, and therefore I go ahead and I actually look at this text that I was reading the other day, which says the artificial intelligence should be called actually augmented reality, not artificial, because augmented is the one which is going to be collaborating with the human mind rather than contesting it. And that's a very interesting debate, but probably not a part of what we are doing today. But coming back to what Navneet was saying, and I'm kind of echoing that for advertising as well, that we are a nascent market as far as AI is concerned. Of course, we have partners. We have brands like Google. We have, all American brands, which are very much using AI prominently, and Indian brands that way are still sort of weighing it and looking at the cost and those parameters. But technology, as we know, grows faster than we can even think, and because there is a need, we have this huge market here, and we have now a new generation, which is the digitally oriented generation, which is already paving way for good AI interaction in future. So, therefore we are discussing this, and therefore we are looking at it and having a chat today. So I set my argument with these three buckets that I have located, and we move forward with it.
Yes, I also totally agree with Dr. Ganjo and Dr. Navneet. Like there are a few aspects where artificial intelligence it can work, like in media tracking or from advertisers' perspective also. But then if I go back to media education again, so there are various aspects where Kulveen talked about, like in research we are using artificial intelligence the way it is helping researchers also. But I think we are from that generation where there were no computers 2 decades ago, 3 decades ago. Those who joined the industry, those who got their education in university, and now we are reskilling ourselves in terms of technology. So there are two things. One is skilling the educator, media educator. The other is skilling the students for the industry. So I would ask Kulveen, how media education industry or how media education institutions, what are they doing? What are they doing in terms of training of educators and training of students?
Right. Yeah, we need some reservations, some challenges, some opportunities for both public education and industry. But most of us do recognize that it is here to stay. It has the capacity to create predictive modeling, like Wesley was pointing out, its ability to predict user interface patterns, then its ability to analyze big data in terms of mammoth social media conversations its ability to assist us in our various capacities is then making sure that we recognize its potential and, if possible, then adapt to it, recognizing its limitations of, how human interaction and socialization may suffer, or how critical thinking processes may undergo a change because of introduction of AI-based learning features, right? But when we're talking about what is media education doing, since we are in the process of negotiating with this technological transformation, All India Association of Universities, they have started many programs. Now, how adequate are they? That needs a lot of deliberation, because more than lectures, I would believe we require training, that is, specific training modules on digital learner management assignments for AI integration in communication classrooms. We require module-based understanding of capacity building and framework creation. And more importantly, Professor Bala, we require media educators, like you said, may be limited in their orientation, since we come from another generation. So we may be limited in our understanding and orientation of this technological intervention. So we need to be reoriented in a way so that we can use artificial intelligence or these, algorithm-powered machines with intelligence in curriculum development. That is very, very important, that we introduce or make use of artificial intelligence in curriculum development, in journalism, in advertising, in public relations, various subdisciplines of media and communication studies. So that's important. Another thing you pointed out, this is with regards to reskilling or retooling of, I would say, retooling of media educators, which requires funding as well, Professor Bala. It's not just scheduling what kind of programs we need for media educators, for them to become AI oriented, for them to become AI enabled, but also what kind of funding are we providing? Like, for instance, there are various courses available on other platforms, but they are not free. They're very expensive. So can we have various organizations pitching in for training and development with regards to artificial intelligence and communication studies? That is one. And then you asked from the learner's point of view. Now that is very important, because the learner today is technologically skilled. It has digital skills in terms of technological skills. They can use the machines. They're digital natives, as both Navneet and Maitri pointed out. But their digital literacy may be limited. So it's very important, and I like to echo Navneet's thoughts here and his reservations, that when we bring in artificial intelligence, we bring in both the good bots and the bad bots. We bring in both the empowerment and the deficiencies it may create in our learning systems. So in that case, it's very important to reinvent media literacy with regards to artificial intelligence in various subdisciplines, whether it is advertising, that is understanding the relationship between the advertiser, the agencies, and the audiences, or whether it is the hybrid and the blended, the hybrid newsrooms in which journalists today are operating, or it is the entertainment industry. We were talking about Netflix recommendations and how a lot of predictive analytics, a lot of monitoring takes place in that particular, format of communication. So all of that will have to be told, because AI has a role to play in terms of, artificial intelligence allows us to identify and recognize words and phrases which we can help our learners to understand as, deceptive or misleading. So it helps in creating an informed media professional who can create content which is valid, content which is truthful. So in many ways, post-truth digital media consumption can be defined by artificial intelligence-based communication classrooms. So that potential has.
Yes, Kulvin, I think if you remember earlier also, once we were discussing something about research, and then we were discussing some softwares, the kind of investment it requires to use those softwares, that is also a challenge for media institutions and individual researcher also, if they don't have any such sort of funding. So that's also an issue that we need to understand, that although there are advantages, skilling can be done, but then what about the cost of that technology that we are using? When I'm talking about this cost, so say, Dr. Anand, if you get that kind of facility with your media tracking facility for your clients, so in that case, will it be a big investment for industry, for companies, particularly small agencies, which they don't have, so much of big projects or big funds. So in that case, will it be a challenge for industry? One, in terms of having the software, having the technology. Secondly, then skilling and training the practitioners.
Absolutely. I think very much with you on that. Again, for the benefit of my dear young friends, I would want to take them to a celebrated book called The Brave New World by Aldous Huxley,
Yes.
written in 1932, where he predicted, the outcome and the way the world was going gaga over technology, and there were many who thought that the world would change. And that was largely a satire and exposing, attempting to basically mock at human fragility to get trapped by the charm of technology. That was 1932. Then in 1970, Alvin Toffler, and I'm sure many of my young friends would have read or heard about him. He wrote a book called The Future Shock, where he was talking about how the adhocracy is going to dominate over anything else. And this is so scaringly true when you look at the kind of scenario that we are in thanks to COVID. He had said, Alvin Toffler, in 1970, the book was published, that there will be multiple offices. There will be no physical office, so to say. The invention will have to be matched with intention, and each one of us will have to require our stability zones. And of course, there was this Marshall McLuhan, the quote which I started my PhD thesis with, we live in a time of all at onceness. Well, time has ceased, space has vanished, and the world is becoming a global village. Having said that, yes, we should not allow technology or digital dominance to destroy the great capabilities that humans possess. Coming to your specific question, Kiran, yes, I think it does mean a whole lot of spending for 80% of the agencies like ours, mid-size or small agencies, PR industry, and therefore one will have to have the clarity of thought and the discretion as to when you go out and when people confront you that, oh, you do not know AI, you do not practice AI, you should have that clarity that AI has a limited role to play. Yes, when it comes to mining of social media analytics, yes, sentiment analysis, yes, tracking of, I'll rather rely on Google. I would not be very gung-ho about spending large sums of money on buying some third-party application, which is giving me some fancy data, big data that Mathli ma'am was talking about. Because I think so far we have managed to do very well without relying. Unlike advertising, she was very right that requires a whole lot of data crunching, data analytics. But in PR, I think we can be pretty with without spending too much on that. Also, we cannot afford it. You're right, Kiran.
Yes, I think same goes with the advertising industry also. Here we were talking about, big companies, Google, Amazon, they have money, they can use artificial intelligence. When I was talking about these search engines, or you, on the basis of your previous searches, you get messages on social media. But just what about the small agencies? They Do they face challenge in terms of software, in terms of training of their professionals? Because training also requires investment. That also costs you. So, Dr. Ganjo, I would like to ask you, because in advertising, everywhere in TV commercials, we can see that agencies are using AI. In consumer insights, we can see, yes, we get so much of information through AI, but ground reality for comparatively smaller agencies, I think that it is something different. You can throw more light on it.
Yeah. Thank you. Actually, you see, I started with that statistics just to make the point that, we are talking about AI, and that's confined to the digital world. And as we speak, the digital, digital world does not lead the media sort of spending or media sort of popularity. We still have television, and the television of course, would be innovating. See, I can't resist but sort of quote Peter Drucker, who had said that for any particular business or an industry, two things are important. One is innovation, and the other thing is marketing. So, this is true that, we have to have innovative products, and marketing has to push it. But then marketing in digital space, for them, AI is inescapable eventually, because that's where the trend is. As far as we speak, yes, you are right. Smaller agencies, startups are actually suffering the most, because while AI helped Google to move from a search engine to a sales sort of platform, it is through the Google ad intervention or phenomena that we see. What's happening currently also is that creativity is something that is being slowly sort of not taken over, but threatened by the AI. The Zomato advertising that, everybody in this group definitely has seen and not been able to escape is a prime example of the fact that creative copywriting, these are like the temples of advertising, and so much goes in bringing out the copy, in summarizing your brand in one line. This is something that AI has done so easily for Zomato that, for a second you will see Zomato coming up with that kind of precision, the precision which it has got again through its machine learning only, and it will give you specific one-liner which, even if you're not looking at the ad, you cannot miss. Monsoon is here, something like that, and pizza. Those kind of lilting, attractive advertising is actually threatening the creative space within an agency now. Having said that, I absolutely second, both my panelists in their own ways, because while Kulbeen is telling us the positives of AI, which stands good for every technology. Every technology comes with both the pluses and the minuses. So yes, the plus of it is very important, and we see in many in many spaces. It's really helping us a lot, and education being one of those places, because again, that is a space where we are talking about lesser resources. We are talking about reaching out to places which are remote. Absolutely well taken. I do also understand and second where Navneet is coming from, which is really the question you asked me: what happens to smaller players? And the smaller players, can they afford giving in to artificial intelligence or augmented intelligence? Yes, a question of debate. They cannot, and they will not, and this is going to take some time. But having said that, certain things which AI brings on table have to be taken cognizance of. In fact, we are living it already. The 35% who are there, 45% who are there, we're already living it. It tells us, it is able to help us in identifying the potential customers through the patterns and other things that it is able to create for us. And And that is something that we cannot deny. So the fact that it not only helps us in impact assessment, it also helps us in strategic planning is something that is a reality. And then when we are talking about these huge numbers manually, it is as expensive, or it is as sort of labor intensive as probably or maybe this will be a little more expensive to get in the AI in it. However, going forward, because now we have the government getting into a policy, we have Niti Aayog coming up with its own documents and trying to understand. I'm sure going forward, money will not be a deterrent really for the AI to come in. There will be solutions to that also, where maybe we are going to have the private public partnership model, or something interesting like that, where there will be funding. So funding will not really be a deterrent, though at this time that seems like a big issue, and it is really challenging a lot of small creative hot shops, or as Navneet was telling us about the PR outfits, which are very specific, focused to one particular thing. Absolutely, there is this challenge, and it is discussions like this, it is researches which are going to bring out these facts that feed into the policy, where the solution will lie. Because as I said, that I know that this is a reality that most of us are going to get used to, and most of the advertisers are going to want, and the consumers very well are there. The data is the consumer today.
Yes, well said, Dr. Ganju. In fact, I was going through a report, and which says that AI will create up to $2.6 trillion in business value in marketing and sales alone. Yes. So while going through that data, I was thinking about the jobs. The people are raising this concern over jobs that in future, because of artificial intelligence, we may lose jobs, because there are so many things which we are talking about. So the same question, one of the student, she has asked that the most immediate concern for many is that AI-enabled system will replace workers across a wide range of industries. So will AI replace human workers in PR? Yes, I can see. We need that kind of intelligence that Dr. Navneet has already talked about. But in media education, when UGC is also saying that we need to have that blended learning, and there are higher educational institutes, we are going for, online courses. And so, Dr. Kulveen, what do you think? Will it replace teachers in a media education industry?
Or like all of us have been saying, this is the reality which is staying with us because of changes in policy, because of changes in technology. Pandemic is simply based on this digital disruption, right? So in the backdrop of all of this, we must recognize that we must understand, like I said at the beginning, artificial intelligence is to play an assistive role. It is to play a supportive role, which is complementary to human interaction and socialization. See, media education is primarily a unique space which is discussion based, which is socialization driven, which is equipment intensive. Right? So these are unique characteristics of media and communication education. So within that space, artificial intelligence creates opportunities and possibilities of assistance, of aid, of support, of managing and analyzing certain data. Like for instance, we are talking about what kind of journalists do we want these days. Do we really want journalists who would simply write the 5 Ws and 1 page of a news report? No, journalism is extending itself beyond that. And that is where perhaps these machines, these algorithm-driven machines can come in and let us, give us possibilities of identifying what is investigative idea. Now, we were talking about the financial viability of introducing AI in curriculum. Of course, we have to work with a lot of care, but like government is very keen on introducing it at various steps. So let's see what happens with that. My point is that since AI is already a part of us, let's recognize it. Let's be artificial intelligent, literate media educators and media learners. Let's not live in a space which is a space of vacuum. when we simply debug the idea and we are not able to integrate it. Let's extract the advantages and then critically, like Navneet was talking about, critically analyze the loss of human agency. Even Methri was talking about what will happen to creative concepting. Let's critically analyze this loss of human agency in decision making, in creative visualization. And let me tell you that through researchers, we can really draw the line where natural language processing and deep learning can help us identify up to this point in creative process, AI will come. And after that, no intervention of AI. It will be driven by human interface and socialization and experiential learning from here itself. So what we need to do is be digitally sagacious. We need to be digitally prudent in weeding out the concerns of this loss of agency, of this resource disparity which Kiran you were talking about. We need to look at resource disparity very critically, and then probably make AI part of our knowledge-driven process. AI should not drive knowledge in media education, but it should be integrated in theory and practice, so that the gap between today and tomorrow, which is times to come, in media research, media training, can be reduced like that.
So may I just come in, because
Yes,
I'm
yes,
kind of
please.
so taking Kulween's point ahead. You see what, and answering the question which the student had asked. So it's not like a machine replaces, and these are anxieties which are justified because we are a labor intensive country. We have a lot of people, and of course AI works very well in the context of the American society, where there are lesser people and they need machines. But I'm sure we are not going to accept and adapt to it the way it's been done globally. We'll have our own way of taking up AI and dealing with it. So giving an example, till about 3 years, I don't know, just in the recent past, we were not really talking about digital marketing or digital journalism even in our classrooms. It used to be just a part of the integrated marketing communication course. But today, I think even we try to put up to 60% focus on the digital media training. So we are adapting. It's not like, that has replaced anything else that we are teaching. So similarly, what we are going to be doing is making our students ready and equipped to be in that digital space. And as I said right in the beginning, that because it is 45%, and when it sort of grows out and covers the entire country, you will see there's enough space for human beings to be there to guide, and the augmented reality, that I prefer to call it, not artificial, is going to be something that is a collaborator, which is really up to us. It's really us going there, trained to know what we have to do. But at the same time, we have to be prepared that there'll be challenges. Today, your AI is not able to probably always understand very finer sentiments, like the consumer's biases. Those are not read by the AI. So that's why we have had examples in the past also, where many times, wrong or sort of illegal things have also been brought up, like the websites where people go, again, the ads placed up for websites which turn out to be bogus. Now that's also something that the AI also has led us to. So, for example, progressive societies like in the US, we see the next move. That's kind of a stage. They have reached a stage where they've really understood the AI intervention, and they are now talking about their rights. So that they're kind of looking at laws which are going to be privacy laws and things like that. We are still at a very, very nascent stage, but we don't have to get overwhelmed by AI, because after all, it's going to be something that we are going to mold to our reality and take it up. But definitely, its role in being able to move from what it is doing already, which is impact assessment, which is deep research, to probably more interesting things like, Kiran, you like the Alexa. but I kind of get scared of somebody in my room. so these are our own little biases, which AI still hasn't figured out. But not to say that it will not, because now from machine learning we are moving to deep learning or something like that, which is really about putting all these things in the machine. But I would say we don't have to feel threatened. Yes, we will feel challenged, and then the fact does remain that is where good old traditional mythologies come to our, and even today's cinema comes to our rescue to give us the hope that human mind is the most powerful one, and nothing can beat it, even something that looks like or thinks like a human being. So that I wanted to sort of add that to the whole discussion
Yes,
here.
when Dr. Navneet Anand was talking about Brave New World, I was thinking about 1984. Big Brother is watching. So this is
Yeah.
what happened. This is happening with us when we are using GPS or whatever we are searching. So Google is, or other platforms, they are taking note of each and every activity that we are doing. Yes, we are living in a world of disparity. There is so much of disparity in the world that on the one hand we are talking about artificial intelligence, on the other there are people, there are students, particularly those who are unable to have those digital devices to connect to their teachers. We are connected to our students, but teachers are unable to connect to their students. So here is a very, very relevant question from Mudita Raj. With digital divide, where and how do you see the spread of artificial intelligence? So this is what I want to ask Dr. Anand, if you can answer this question.
Yeah, I think a very, very important question. I may not have an answer. Like I said, I feel extremely privileged to belong to a generation which has seen from Bullock cart to Cybermart to Flipkart. And having seen all of these, I still find when I travel thanks to my profession, I get to travel extensively. And having read sociology and from JNU, that KIDA is still there of research and analyzing human minds, etc. And when I go deeper into India, that is Bharat, I realize that, there is a fake, not fake. I mean, there is a big narrative out there, but the real India deep down is very, very different. I think it's a challenge that the government has addressed very well to answer your question. Under Prime Minister Modi, I think the Digital Bharat program, the Digital India campaign has really made good inroads, but we are still many miles perhaps away from an ideal scenario where digital divide gives way to digital, dominance along an equitable digital distribution. We shall have to wait and watch, I guess. AI will further accentuate or may likely accentuate the difference that exists in the form of digital divide. Kiran?
Yes, in fact, there are students, they are also asking about this question that Dr. Ganju was saying, that you enjoy Alexa, but I'm scared of the privacy. Yes. Students are also asking the same thing. Where will be our digital privacy with respect to big data and AI? Of course, it is going to a big problem for us that our privacy has been challenged. I'm going to another question, which Smriti has asked. Is artificial intelligence also helpful for media messages that are intended for audience who don't lead very digitized lives? So, Dr. Kulveen, I would like to ask you this question.
I think so. In the last question it was asked, when we recently defined the issues of equity of people, business concerns, we spoke about concerns on digital privacy. But then again, it is a double-edged sword in that sense. On one side, as we have more conversations in artificial intelligence, we start discussing the issue of digital privacy more. We're talking about this invasion, and already we are into this process of now drafting an artificial intelligence code of conduct, right? Within the classrooms, a lot of deliberations across Europe, across global south have happened, and now we're in the process of creating a code of conduct. Within that, issues of digital access, digital inequality, privacy, its invasion, and protection are being covered. Right? So this is true, Professor Bala, with regards to all kinds of emerging technologies within this expanding digital footprint which Dr. Anand was talking about. Now, as far as Sukriti's question is concerned, that how people who are not in the digitized world, how these media messages which are highly personalized, which are based on monitoring and programmatic advertising, how they are going to affect these lives. My point is, even if you possess a smartphone, and like you were talking about, you have tracking devices on that, you being monitored in one way or the other. So what is vital, Sukriti, is that we have media literacy and repeating media literacy with regards to use of these algorithms. How are these algorithms intervening, mediating, and affecting our lives is very important, even if we are not frequent digital media consumers. Once we have the knowledge, we have the power. And if we have the power, then the control, Matthew was talking about, the technology is not going to be demonic. Exactly. So if we have the knowledge about AI, if we are literate about it, we are empowered to handle artificial intelligence in a more regularized manner, in a more protected way, which is far more empowering than anything.
Yes, very well said, Kulveen. Another thing which we generally talk about whenever we are having any panel discussion about any topic we are discussing, generally we ask about the future of that particular technology or the disruption or the intervention. Here, I think someone has already asked a question about it, which I think very, very well framed question. The rise of fake media and disinformation. Will artificial intelligence make this worse? Is it going to be our future of news industry, of media industry? As consumer of media, as producer of media content, I think the question is towards both sides. So, Dr. Maithili Ganju, if you can throw some light on this issue, because this is also one concern which
Sure.
because
Sure.
people, those who are organizing media literacy workshops and fact checking workshops like Dr.
Yes.
Kulveen, she keeps on
Yes.
organizing. So
Yes.
I think you have that kind of experience and you can talk
Yes.
about it.
Yes, yes. So this is not just a concern. It's actually a reality. We do a lot of we do see a lot of fake news, which is there because it has been manipulated through AI, and which is not only there innocently. It also leads to other more important social issues and fragmenting the society sometimes. So that's a real problem, and yes, it is very much there. But as I said, I mean, as I think Kulveen has actually been talking a lot about media literacy, and that is a very important aspect where we have to come on, almost sort of make that a part of the agenda, is to make people literate about this digital world and this AI and what it is capable of doing, and an increase in those Google initiative, which is taken on by other Factshala and other such prominent organizations and brands. They are now brands who go out. They are moving now from universities. They move to communities. They go even to the rural spaces in order to educate people to identify how the fake news or a fake video can be identified. So media literacy is going to be very, very important to tackle this problem, which AI can be AI induced. The other important thing is that we have to now move, and I guess that will happen as we mature as a market for AI and digital world is to go for our laws, our privacy laws. Now that's also a part of the media literacy where people don't know that they can actually keep themselves away from anything and everything that comes to them. But of course, in that context also, we know that there is this whole concept where the brands or the messages or the bots really tend to go and talk to almost everybody. Hyper customization of messages is happening, but other processes and other institutions which are going to be countering this are very much in the scene, and they need to grow along with the law. That would really be the answer to it. I mean, again, what I want to reiterate as my point of view and my understanding of industry, of technology, and of the society in which we are today is that, some things are unavoidable, and all it needs is to be educated about it and to be, thinking. That's where your research, your policies, your law, and your society have to kind of come together. And it is platforms like this where we are addressing young media producers. They are tomorrow going to be the people who are going to take this sort of phenomena forward. And we can't wish away AI. We cannot wish away technology at all. That we all know, because it's not only sort of, if you look at the philosophy of it, we are on that trajectory, and it isn't that AI has come today. It was thought of in 50s, and then it transformed, and there are people who find it fascinating to take it because there are advantages to it, and that's how even human knowledge is getting challenged to think and to kind of make the best out of this. So well, that is what it is, that we need the counter sort of as I said, processes in order to see that these disadvantages of the AI or technology, all the digital existence, do not harm us. But I agree that AI also is a contributor to a lot of, Dr. Kiran, this whole concept of fake journals that we deal with in academia every day,
Yes.
it has an AI behind it. I mean, how do we have these clone, websites coming up and clone journals coming up, and thousands of researchers and lakhs of researchers worldwide are not able to identify them. I mean, after all, these are the battles that are going on. So it's not in the future, it's very much in our present that we are dealing with these things.
Can I add here?
Yeah,
Let me add to Professor Gangu's point of view here. On the other hand, artificial intelligence also has certain programs which help you identify the words and phrases which have been delivered by these sources, which are unverified sources, and then that helps you identify what is fake news, what is disinformation, what is misinformation. So if AI is a proliferator of certain kinds of information which may be problematic, it is also AI-enabled programs which help you identify what is fake, right? So in that sense, it's a catalyst of ensuring that the citizens understand fake news. So AI is a huge enabler. A lot of programs are available. We have a list of programs which are artificially intelligent to tell you that these words and phrases are common in information or deceptive information from unverified sources, which are spreading like wildfire on social media. So it is an enabler and it is a dissipator of certain problematic implications as well. All what we have to do is work with a lot of care, use it. Do not be, do not allow it to become your master. Do not be a slave. Befriend AI, befriend artificial intelligence, so that we can work hand in hand towards a more knowledge-empowered communication.
Thanks, Kulveen. Yes.
Yes. Through this discussion, what I can see that this is something which is really multifaceted, multidimensional. These are the multi-level aspects of artificial intelligence that we are seeing in our industry. somewhere it is really helpful on the side of consumer. It is challenging the privacy norms, but something which I can understand is this is extension of human creativity. We can't think that okay, we can't live without it right now. The kind of habits we are having, like using GPS and like searching so many things on various platforms, whether we want to buy or not, we just keep on searching. We have that kind of habit that artificial intelligence has created in our life. And in education also, I think this is going to change the perspective. It is, we are going to integrate in our system, in our teaching pedagogy. Of course, it can't replace us, it can't replace teachers like you, Dr. Kulveen, Dr. Ganju, and professionals like Dr. Navneet, who are, of course, they are working on various platforms, but with that human capabilities and that kind of competence and brain that we use in our work. So I'll hand over to Ms. Shruti to wind up.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes,
Can I make
Yes.
one very short point?
Please.
Next conference we have, I'm sure we shall have an AI-induced tea break.
Yes, I'm missing those, coffee breaks and tea breaks of conferences. Yes, this is the
Navneet, Samsung had started out with an algorithm-driven program in which coffee, you have the virtual coffee along with the session you are delivering.
And we'll assign Kulveen to organize that.
Yes.
Done.
All right.
Done.
Okay.
Thank you so much to our esteemed panelists who have touched upon all aspects of AI, artificial intelligence, whether it's media education by Dr. Kulveen, or its impact on advertising and marketing communication by Maitri Ganju ma'am and Dr. Navneet. And indeed, like, we are living in a very interesting times at this crossroad where this kind of networks, these kind of network communication, network impact is coming in the ahead time. And this panel discussion was, of course, a very interesting and very pertinent point of departure to talk about it, to discuss and deliberate various aspects of it. So heartfelt thanks from DME and from ICANN4 team to all of the panelists. And now I invite Dr. Sushmita Bala, Head DME Media School and Chief Associate Convener of ICANN4 to give her concluding remarks. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Shruti. Artificial intelligence, this is a technology which is bound to affect us all the spheres in media industry in a big way. All the panelists, Dr. Ganju, Dr. Kulveen, Dr. Navneet, Dr. Kiranwala covered varied aspects of AI and its impact on media. So thank you all panelists, and thank you Professor Kiranwala for bringing this panel to us. Thanks to all of you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Bala, for inviting us and making us part of this wonderful conference. Thank you so much. And thanks to all the panelists, those who agreed to join us despite their busy schedule. And when I was calling Dr. Anand today also, I was thinking he's such a busy person, whether he'll be able to discuss with me in the morning or not. Thank you, Dr. Anand. Special mention to you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for the appreciative words. I'd now like to thank all our guests for an inspiring and informative session. I would also like to extend my gratitude to Professor Dr. Ambrish Saxena, Dean DME Media School, Convener ICANN4, and Professor Dr. Sushmita Bala, Head DME Media School, Chief Associate Convener ICANN4, for the entire ideation and planning of all the sessions. I would like to thank Dr. Manasri Maheshwari, Ms. Manmeet Kaur, Ms. Shruti VL, Ms. Mudita Raj, Mr. Kishore Vats, and Mr. Pramod Kumar Pandey for their constant support and guidance. A heartfelt thanks to Mr. Ritik Ghosh, Mr. Sumanta Sarthidas, Mr. Sachin Nair, and Mr. Yogesh Sharma for providing the overall digital operation in ICANN4. I will also like to thank our newsletter team comprising of both student and faculty members, namely Ms. Sukriti Arora and Dr. Tina Bora, for constantly supervising and mentoring the team. And also I thank Mr. Mohammed Kamil and Ms. Krishna Pandey for working around the clock in all the press proceedings. You can keep a check on our proceedings on the official Facebook page of ICANN. I'd also like to thank Mr. Anmol Mehta from our DME family and Mr. Sumohit Nirala from one of our knowledgeable partners, KR Mangalam University's N, for tirelessly working and making our event look more beautiful digitally with the help of their prolific design. I will also like to thank our entire team, all faculty members and students who have worked day and night and all the challenges and obstacles of the pandemic to make this conference happen. Lastly, I thank our audience for being here and contributing. I hope you have given us your precious feedback. If not, then please do it now. The link has been shared in the chat box. For all the new updates, stay in touch with us through our social media handle. The links are being shared in the chat box right now. And do not forget to visit the DME website and the ICANN4 website for any or all details. Well, this was me. I'm Mrinal Rawat with my partners.